that's one of those things where I think people were hooked with the la 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 la
Okay, so
la, and didn't like pay attention terribly much to the pretty
well,
dark story in the song.
that's what I mean. So I was actually thinking that like the hook is kind of part of what made me realize that it was kind of a traumatic story because it's almost like I took it like he was walking and like tuning out the pain by
Hmm.
using the repair. That's how I come from a place of trauma, and so like I was hearing things in this song. It's like, oh, he's writing about his trauma. Oh, he's dealing with his trauma. La 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 la. I take that. I know that's the hook, and that's the simple, stupid buy-in. But it's
Hmm.
something about that that kind of alludes to the trauma. It's like, well, forget about all that just happened. La 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 la.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what
And
you're doing.
that's but that second verse he does it too. He actually that's the only place where he does the la las in the verse. But the end of that verse is all lies and jest. Still a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. And then la 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 la, like he does la 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 at the very end of that verse too. And that's the
Oh,
disregarding the rest part, right?
right. I mean, that's brilliant songwriting, but that also speaks to what?
Right.
Trauma. That's what you do when you're going through trauma. So it's like the
Exactly.
trauma is all over the song. And that's what made it feel, I guess, more grittier and
Hmm.
personal. And so
He's
it's
talking
like,
about masculinity and like what it means to be a man,
so
and like
yeah,
he's pulling from like his experiences, right?
this is what I mean. So this is what I mean about his traumatizing. It's almost like, well, his dad is abusive and telling him that he's not man enough. So he's out on this journey to prove to his father, I am a man, damn it.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, there's a whole the whole verse about like nobody talked to him except the whores on Seventh Avenue.
That
And he says, and like sometimes I was so lonely, I took some comfort there. Like that's being a man, sort of, or not really, but like you know what I mean. Like it's
so when he's
he's
saying
doing a thing that that makes him feel like he's being a man.
right. So is he saying that as a young man I'm buying prostitutes? Is he essentially
That's what the lyric is. Yeah.
yeah, the lyric is pretty much saying is like, well, what he's speaking to now also too, and this is what I mean about was kind of traumatizing. Well, he must have been socially awkward. What kind of
Mhm.
14, 15, 16-year-old boy is buying hookers?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody who's socially awkward that kind of maybe be feeling a certain type of way about his
And doesn't
masculine.
know how to talk to people, not even just talk to girls, but talk to people, period. Because I mean,
Right.
he says he did it like the lyric says, um, sometimes I was so lonesome, I took some comfort there. Like it's like I couldn't get anybody to interact with me, so I had to pay somebody to do it,
Right.
basically.
And songwriters, the brilliant ones, the most brilliant ones, oftentimes super introverts.
Hmm.
Super introverts at times can go on spells where they really don't talk or deal with anybody if it's not musically related.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Paul Simon always has come off that way. Like, I mean, he's gregarious enough and he has conversations with people or whatever, um, but but yeah, he definitely comes across as somebody who would have had to learn how to talk to people, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Um, and then the last verse of the song is about the boxer, like the actual boxer. Um,
Right.
the in the clearing stands a boxer and a fighter by his trade, and he carries a reminder of every glove that laid him down or cut him till he cried out in his anger and his shame, I am leaving, though the fighter still remains. That like,
That's a metaphor, right?
mm-hmm, yeah.
Correct.
He's, I mean, you could
So,
if we're going down the road that we are just talking about, that's the parental figure, right? Like
right.
he's like either looking at the parental figure or looking at himself in the future, and seeing like how the scars from all the fights that this person has been in have affected him, have changed who he
I think
is.
so. I think he's projecting
Yeah.
that what all the scar tissue and trauma has done to him into the man that he's going to be,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
is like so almost it's like you see you called me soft and I ended up being a boxer, a fighter.
Yeah.
That's why it's called the boxer, right? Like,
Right.
look at me, dad. I'm really a fighter. I'm really strong. I'm tough just like you. I'm strong just like you. Look at me, dad. It's like borderline a cry for help, in my opinion.
Yeah. But he's also, and at the same time, it's still like,
A healthy cry for help, like in a
yeah,
therapeutic way.
exactly, and it's almost a song of or a verse of forgiveness too, because like it's a like I see what this shit has done to me, so I sort of understand why you were the way you were,
Mhm.
right? Is that kind of thing?
So even when you were saying that, this is like so. There's two ways that I look at this as a songwriter. It's like man, if this story isn't real, he's as good as a songwriter as they come because he is able to tap into the emotions of a real life situation. But that's another thing about great songwriters is that they make it feel so real to you. And this feels so real, like he
Yeah.
lived it,
Yeah.
you know?
I would argue that this would be like those movies that are based on a true story. Like he's like
Right.
pulling maybe something from his life
Yes.
or pulling things from other people's
Well,
lives and kind of
well,
combining them to make the
well see,
story more compelling.
this is what I mean. When you're a great writer, let's say dad was an alcoholic and dad got abusive one time, you can take, when you're a great songwriter, you can take that one time that dad was abusive. Like dad might have been an alcoholic the whole time, but that one time dad got abusive. A great songwriter can take that and make it seem like, oh, no, he's been
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
like, that is part of the
Or
creative
they can
license.
even like take stories like they heard from their friends telling stories about that and like
Correct.
incorporate those details and whatever too.
I've done that in song
I have
on
too.
my
Yeah.
first album. I took a story that a friend told me about from Hawaii and I turned it into like literally a whole story. Like he told me like a brief version of something that happened in Hawaii, and I wrote a whole song about it. I made it into a whole nother story just because I thought that what he told me was super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I have many songs like that too that I've written that that I've taken like extrapolated like details out from a short story from somebody else.
I've written hooks that are based on conversations that I've had with people. It's like where somebody has said something. It's like, oh man, you want to know what if I put that with that? Be like, hey, hold on, I'll be back. Yeah, that's just part of the creative license. So it's like I heard his songwriting genius in here as well.
He's an exceptional songwriter. Now Nas though is like otherworldly, man. Like this is the first time I had paid attention to. I mean, I'd listened to Nas before, obviously, and listened to Illmatic before, but like listened to how densely interwoven the lyrics are. And it's one of those things, like they say about great artists, great movies, great songs, great things, that you see something or hear something different every time. Even if you listen to it 600, 700, 800,000 times, like and obviously I've not listened to the song nearly as much as you have, but it I hear something different in it, or I recognize something different every time I hear it. And he's just like one of the most extraordinary poets I've ever heard.
Poetically speaking, I think he is hip hop's shining artist poetically. I mean, according to hip hop, and Mike and I do reference him as the greatest MC of all time. We do feel like he is the greatest MC of all time. But just on a poetic level, let's take the MCing out of it. Well, he's our foremost poet. That title is probably in modern day time reserved for Kendrick Lamar as a songwriter and a poet in hip hop terms. But I don't think hip hop has ever seen somebody as poetically inclined as Nas, just about the fact that he knows how to make the dreary sound beautiful.
Yeah.
It is hard to do in hip hop. What you hear in hip hop when the pain is being expressed is the pain.
Yeah.
Like, Ice Cube and Scarface and Chuck D are pissed off.
Yeah. You hear that. Like anybody who's even if you've never heard the things, you can hear like 2 bars and you can hear it in their voice.
Pissed off. Right. You can hear despair emotionally in other artists like Ghostface when he's talking about his home situation. All that I got is you. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
To the point that it makes you want to cry. Nas doesn't do that. You'll get done listening to a Nas song and it'll actually make you almost feel proud that you're from the projects.
That's definitely the feeling I got from. I'm not from the projects, obviously, and I don't have that lived experience, but like that's the feel that I got.
It's the weirdest feeling. It's like he knows how to. The beautiful thing about Illmatic, the beautiful thing about The World Is Yours, the beautiful thing about Nas and that album is that it's a kid talking about the Queensbridge projects, but poetically, because of how he expresses these themes, and all the themes on the album are timeless. This is probably the most timeless theme next to Life's a Bitch.
Yeah. Hey y'all, thanks for making it to the end of this video. If you love this, check out this video right here. It's another one that where Coop and I are talking about how two songs go together that you wouldn't maybe think go together. So thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.